Hey everybody, did you know you can go to colinmullen.com in order to get art and art prints? That's why I set up the website, colinmullen.com. So hey everybody, a lot of the time on this channel I'd like to talk about my own art theory while we do speed paints, things that I've been thinking about with art. But one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is AI art. And a lot of people have this like vibe that it's wrong, like that the artwork is done wrong, and that it looks weird. And some of that is very obvious. Stuff like hands. It doesn't know how to do hands. It doesn't know how to do faces a lot of the time. It has a lot of confusion with that. So what we're gonna try and do today is I'm going to give it a prompt, both Stable Diffusion and DALL-E 2. We're gonna give the same prompt to both, and the prompt is gonna be based after a real painting. And then we're gonna compare what a real artist can do with a description versus what a AI can do with the same description. Now, what's interesting about this is we will be able to talk about all the things that in art theory that AI art currently can't do. Now, there have been more recent images generated with AI art that look way more convincing. The hands look right, the faces aren't weird, maybe they still have a few extra teeth or whatever, but these are details that most people can pick up on. But most people also go, man, there's something wrong with this. I can't quite put my finger on what. And we're going to be talking about that. And if you're a real artist, that is someone who actually makes art rather than ordering it on the internet via a generated prompt, like ordering a burger or something, you will be able to actually add this to your own work. If you are still using AI art, you will not be able to improve yourself because you are at the limits of whatever the machine can do. It won't get better. You can't tell it to do art theory better because you'd have to know art theory first. And well, let's just get into it. Enough shade. So the painting that we're going to be using as our reference, as our thing that we're going to try and emulate, is Cafe Terrace at Night by Vincent van Gogh. Really interesting painting. It's a post-impressionist painting. It was renamed a couple of different times, basically just because he wasn't quite sure what to do with it. There's a lot of weird choices that are so brilliant in the way that they are done. The sculptural nature of the background, like the sky, the fact that he didn't use black when he was doing the sky, but instead decided to leave that for choice spots on the painting in order to really make the sky pop. The complementary color palette here, where we've got the blue followed by the yellow over here. The asymmetry of the entire painting. The way that the whole painting leads you to every single point of it. We have the rooftops leading you to the terrace, which leads you down to here. These all guide your eye to very specific parts of the painting. It's almost as if some sort of master of painting put this together. Details that are further off are less detailed, while details that are closer are given more love and more treatment. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy paste this description that I have. Let's go ahead and try and get to the beginning of it. So I added Paris at Night, post-impressionist, Van Gogh. And then I've got this description that I was able to find on this website called simplykala.com. I decided that if we're gonna do this with AI art, we should probably do it the way an AI artist would and just have no skill at all when typing in stuff and then pretend like we actually did something with it. So that's what we're gonna do. So I took more or less this exact brick of text, edited it a bit, stuff like symbolizing stuff, emotions. Get out of here with that. We don't care. We just want in product work because that's what art is about apparently. So anyway, we're gonna generate it here with DALL-E and we're gonna generate it here with Stable Diffusion. Now, before you get on me and say, oh, well, aren't you an artist? Shouldn't you blah, blah, blah? You should be using AI art. Oh, Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion did a really good job at trying to literally just steal the art. So people are like, oh, hey, AI art doesn't steal. If this is not proof to you that you cannot make images without having to steal other people's art to get here, I don't know what is, man. Like, my description wasn't that good. Wow. Okay. Anyway. Despite the fact that it has whole cloth copied the image, including adding in stuff like the horse, it has done a lot of things wrong, and you can kind of see it in these. And so we're going to talk about what exactly it got wrong. But let's talk about that color palette, because that sure is something for a post-impressionist to be using. All right, so here we have it in GIMP. You know what? I'm actually kind of curious. I want to just try this. Can we... Let's turn down the opacity. Can we get it perfectly lined up? Ooh boy, I'm getting close. Next time someone tells you that AI art doesn't steal from artists, just show them this. Wow, okay. Anyway, let's talk about this painting and everything it gets wrong. And to do that, we're gonna have to talk about the original a bit. So obviously, cameras are gonna be taking pictures of art, and they're gonna probably do some stuff wrong. It's just the nature of how cameras are. They can't always capture things quite perfectly. And so as a result, what we're gonna get is an image that may not have the true colors. But there's a concerted effort by artists, and especially people who are very interested in art and art curation, to try and get these colors as close to what you would expect. However, different monitors will have different color settings and so on and so forth, even just out of the box. And so you'll get different stuff going on. So let's go ahead and take this image, and we're gonna go ahead and desaturate it completely. By turning it to grayscale, we can really see where we want the eye to be. The eye is drawn to here, and then you maybe go this away, and then this away, and you've got this line here, this building that brings you up here. You see all of this stuff, and then eventually you're brought to here. Following the buildings, you might go up this way to check this stuff out. This is just sort of the pattern your eye takes when it's around this piece. And a lot of this has to do with just the framing that he used. The ruts in the street, they are there in real life. This is a real location. It still exists to some degree. It was renovated, so it looks a little bit different. But these give us perspective, as well as forcing our eyes to the stuff that we actually want to see. The patrons at the cafe, the people walking towards the cafe, this whole street, all of that is being pointed to by the ruts in the street, which he accentuates. That way we can really get an eye on that. We've got some weird perspective stuff going on here. This is a little weird what's going on here, but regardless, it's still a very good painting. I believe that this was probably just a mistake, because it's the only part of this that doesn't follow the single, looks like single point. Another thing I want to show you is the way that he's used perspective here in order to draw your eye to exactly where he wants you to look. Watch this. So we draw a line across the top of these windows here, and then we do the same thing starting here. And then we draw a line across the tops of the buildings, give or take, to here. So from the edge of the first building to the edge of the last building. And where does that intersect? Right on top of the waiter. This is where Van Gogh set up this painting for you to look. This is an art composition basic by using parallel lines and vanishing points to draw attention to exactly what you want the viewer to look at. Everything in this piece works towards getting to that end. Let's go ahead and back up a little bit. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit more. All right, so colors. What's going on with the color palette here? We've got some greens. Like, look at this color. It's the color that's on there. It's like this kind of disgusting, like chartreuse almost, but this color is awful. Same with this one over here, but yet no one's gonna tell you that this is an ugly painting. The use of color that he has here is brilliant. So complementary colors that are across the color wheel from each other. Let's just pull up a color wheel. So if we pull up a color wheel, what's across from blue? We've got these yellows and oranges sort of in this range. So if we check this painting out, we've got yellows from the lamps, right? But we also have the blue of the sky. These are complementary colors, so they'll work together, right? You could very much just simplify this painting down to a huge brick of color here, same little thing over here. And that's kind of what the painting is. We've got some grays in here, but notice how like precise he is with all of these brush strokes through here. closer up, we get the shadows. And as you go farther and farther back, the detail gets less and less the further we get away from the center, or from our point of view. And the reason for that is basically people's eyes just aren't very good at seeing things that are super far away. And if you want something to have real good perspective, that's a thing you could do. Let's go back to the AI's mockery of this. Let's do the same thing that we just did. You know, let's do all the different things. Ideally, because this is so blatantly ripping it off, this should work. It's there, I think, is the edge of the window. And then from the top of this building to the bottom of this building, there you go. What the artist wants you to look at is that, whatever that is. I have no idea. I think that's supposed to be the lamp. It's very hard to tell. Colors, let's talk about them. Why is it so incredibly blown out? The figures meld into each other in a way that we don't have on the original. Yeah, you've got some stuff like this, but you have a clear delineation. Even with this like really bad resolution version of this, you can see that there's two different people here. There's a person here. There's someone standing in this doorway that's weirdly big, but okay. Whatever, Van Gogh. You got these people over here. They're walking. You can't really see them that well. You kind of know what they are, you know? Well, let's look back at the mockery, okay? And then over here, all of it, like all of these people just sort of meld together into one giant person. The person is no longer coming out of the door, so they're just sort of phasing through the wall, I guess. Man, I thought that this was like way closer to the original when I first started looking at it, but the more you look at it, the worse it gets. Additionally, if you look at the original, look at what he's doing with his brush strokes here. So he's not drawing, he's not doing an even pattern. He's doing these weird just strokes. And this creates some noise, some texture that really just improves the overall piece. This is a lot more interesting to look at rather than, you know, color. These lines do not seem to serve anything at all. They're just kind of going in random directions. Okay. These brush strokes were made in order to make the night sky appear more alive and have more depth to it, have more interest to it. Coming back to this image, because we haven't really adjusted our values at all, we haven't thought about the color composition, we haven't thought about the composition at all, you'll notice that this area is just black. There's even black in the sky, which is hilarious because like this is famously not having any black in the sky at all. And the reason for that is because that's not what night really looks like. Let's spend a moment and count the stars. There are 7 really big ones, real ones that pop. That's weird. It's exactly an odd number. Why did that happen? Well, one of the rules of art is that you don't put things that are supposed to be natural in even numbers. Why is that? Because like, it's just weird if you have like, I don't know, 4 birds on a fence line. That just seems too even. Whereas if you had 3 or 5, now it seems more like a random grouping of birds rather than a thing that was constructed. With the AI one, however, you'll notice that there are 2 really big important stars. You've screwed up by having an even number. All right, these are like incredibly subtle things, but they jump out to me as an artist because I know they're wrong. Additionally, the amount of detail in the front of the painting, or how we were talking about the farther away something is, the less detail it gets. There's like not a huge noticeable difference in the level of detail here versus the level of detail back here, right? Because the amount of detail in the cobblestone, as well as the people, regardless of how thin it is and how hard it is to tell these shapes apart, it's basically the same amount of detail on these things, which leads you to believe that this area right here is very, very close to this area right here. This is like 2 steps. Like this is not a far distance. Perspective is being screwed up on that level, despite the fact that this is, you know, more or less, we have accurate angles of how the streets were. Good enough. You can tell that these things are farther away because the amount of detail on these cobblestones versus these cobblestones way in the back, there's not even like lines to show you where these cobblestones begin and end back here. That stops somewhere in this area, which leads you like to get so much more like information about what's going on in this space from here to here. This is much further away, right? This is like this is a decently long terrace that these people are sitting on. This is a decent amount back. This is like all somehow like at the same distance. I was actually expecting the dolly one to be worse than the stable diffusion one. Stable diffusion actually does a decent job at making stuff that looks almost conventionally attractive. We've attempted to follow the prompt. We got the colors right as far as like what I asked for. I asked for blue and yellow. Let's see if we can maybe pull this guy up. Yeah, let's save this one, because this has like some of the same information going on. GIMP now. Let's look at what we got. So first off, I asked for post-impressionist. This is much closer to impressionist. We're doing lots of little daubs of color, as well as getting very streaky with our lines. This is much closer to something that he would do during Starry Night than he would do with this one. The teal and the yellow do appear fairly close in color. I think if we run that through the desaturate again, we'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly. So if you're yellow-blue colorblind, the definition here will be just awful and you won't have any understanding of what's going on. I wonder if that's the case with the original. Let's check them out. So when we desaturate this one, you'll notice that despite the fact that this is blue and this is yellow, they're very different in value. That is like how bright versus dark they are. Here we have a situation where colors are kind of all pretty close to the same value, to the point that it just turns muddy. It's not as bad as I expected, but it still is a little bit blurry on what we got going on there. This one, however, reads very easily. It's almost as if nothing has changed with the painting as far as like layout goes. The color makes it pop, it makes it way more interesting, but being able to work in black and white exclusively and being able to get to this is good. You know, I don't even know where to begin with the perspective on this. Boy howdy, we're gonna try. I want to say our vanishing point's somewhere here. Let's see how close to that. Okay, all right, yay, you did it. You got a vanishing point, and I have no idea what this is supposed to be. What is this? Like specifically right there, right where those lines intersect. What am I looking at? It's okay to have messy brush strokes, but like I would much prefer if there was some way of leading us to this lamp or to this window instead of just like kind of here. Maybe put a person there, have some object of note, or use it as a way to just not have place. That's fine too, you know? There's a lot of structural issues as far as like, why is the lamp like shifted this far to the side? Obviously we've got this big yellow gold spot in the back, but I mean, like, we could fix it like that, you know? But maybe that was a style choice. You could argue if this was done by a person rather than AI. AI doesn't know why it's doing that. It's just doing it. Honestly, this painting is so muddy, it's almost impossible to pick out what's going on. And again, if this was done by an actual artist, and then we've got like, I want to say we almost have like 2-point perspective, but I don't know why. We have another, and then what's happening? I think what's happened, it doesn't know where the vanishing point is, and so it's created two. This is something that amateur artists do a lot, where they'll create multiple vanishing points on accident. So if we wanted to fix this image, we'd probably want to bring this entire storefront out, and so that way it lines up with the edge of the roof and it goes there, or just do anything with it. God, this is making me so mad. You compare this with the Van Gogh, and it's just like, I don't know. Where do you want us to pay attention to, my dude? Do you want us to pay attention to exactly here? Yeah, it definitely seems like it. Despite that, the fact that, like, when you look at the actual natural center of this painting, it puts the natural spot to be the center of the painting all the way up there. But, like, your eye would never say that that's the center of the painting, I don't think. Like, it isn't quite right? Like, it's off. You would probably shift it over one way or another, just a little bit. So yeah, okay, so if we're fixing this, we would do something to the lamp to make it look like we did this on purpose. We would do something to this in order to make it so that way it connected up with some vanishing point somewhere. And of course, all of these are rules that, like, you as an artist, as someone who actually makes things, rather than stealing them, you can actually implement in your own work, and you could go, oh, I can actually do that now. This currently cannot do that. However, someone would probably look at this and go, this is really beautiful. I'm actually in love with this painting. This painting's great. It's everything I want from it. It's, you know, bright colors, contrast, blah, 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 whatever. But there's definitely something wrong with it. And this is sort of a tell that it's made by an AI as well, is because of it getting these basics of art just completely wrong. Because people are going to gravitate towards these things, these generically beautiful in a lot of ways things, even if they're a little messed up, people will just sort of accept it, especially at the cost of free over having to pay an artist actually what they're worth, which is a majority of what this whole thing's about. At some point, it will get there. And so that comes to my last point. Okay, so people are dumb, man, like real dumb. You know this, you've met them. You may be even one of them, a person that is. And you might have noticed that people are enjoying this. Like, they like this style of work, regardless of the fact that it has so many fundamental flaws wrong with it, right? So what are we as artists to do? Me personally, I'm gonna gravitate towards not doing things that look photorealistic, because that's something that this program can do. It can make very real looking images now. It's starting to get good at hands and faces and teeth and all that jazz. What it's not good at is expressing emotion, expressing feeling, because whilst this original image, despite the fact that it is just a street in Paris, it's not, though, is it? It's about so much more. It's about, like, being out at night. It's about, like, how beautiful the nightlife is and how lonely this image is. Like, he's not next to the patrons at this cafe. He's all the way over here with us. He's so far away from everything else. He's by himself. These other images don't have that. They don't have that emotion built into them. They haven't thought about that because it's blatantly beyond their ability to think about. When you're making art from here on out, my recommendation, in addition to understanding art theory and breaking the rules however you see fit, now that you know some of them, and I've made several other art theory videos, now that you know the rules, break them, but break them on purpose and for good reason. And man, put a little bit of yourself into it. And that's something that AI art will never be able to do. I'm gonna start making some real ugly paintings. I think I make ugly paintings sometimes. I'm gonna make paintings that aren't, you know, generically beautiful, because that's not how I see things. Food for thought. See you in the next one. Thank you for watching.